Kirtanava Krishnasha, Mukta Sangha Puranamite. And he was thinking, what can I do to actually help the souls like ourselves this day and age? So he decided to appear not only by himself, but with his associates, and those associates are called the other members of the Pancha Tattva. That's why when we chant the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we chant Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Nityananda Shiva Shivasati Gaur, Bhaktivinoda. So these members of the Pancha Tattva, including Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Vedanta, and Srivas, all of whom represent different tattvas. That's what it's called, Pancha Tattva. You got Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Vishnu Tattva. They're all God in different aspects. And then you have Gadadhar, who is Shakti Tattva, and then you have Srivas Thakur, who is Narada Jiva Tattva. So they decided to do something very interesting, paraphrasing this 7th chapter right now. They broke open the storehouse of love of God, and when they broke it open, because previously there was a very high price to pay for achieving Om Om Rayanaya Om Vakvateva Om Om Rayanaya Om Vakvateva Siddhivaya. And he gradually gave up eating, gave up drinking, right? Gave up breathing. Then he showed up. That's a pretty high price, isn't it? So nobody in this age has that sort of price to pay. I mean, we barely sponsor the videography for $500 when it's actually worth much more than that. So therefore, they broke up this storehouse of the love of God, and it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, over here. Thus, young men, old men, thank God, women, and children were all immersed in that inundation. What that means is that everyone can become a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of God. Dina hina yata chilo harinam udirilo. Regardless of their background, race, nationality, gender, Krishna consciousness is completely equal to everybody. Children, old people, I mentioned it before. And you actually see in the 4 sampradayas, everybody knows there's 4 sampradayas. There's the Brahma Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, Lakshmi Sampradaya, Kumara Sampradaya. There's actually a very large variety of different entities. For example, in the Brahma Sampradaya, which we're members of, you have an interesting person in charge. He has 4 heads. That's pretty interesting. But then Lakshmi Sampradaya, you have a lady in charge of the whole Sampradaya. Sampradaya means disciplic succession. And Kumara Sampradaya have 4 little boys, 5 years old, who are in charge of the Sampradaya. And in the Rudra Sampradaya, you have someone who basically is an Avaduta. He doesn't wear clothes. And he's in charge because he's in so much ecstasy. That doesn't mean you should do that. He's in so much ecstasy that he doesn't even bother to put on clothes. Of course, his devotees, they worship him to get money. But he's not interested. He's only interested in bhakti. So, in other words, Krishna consciousness is for everyone, and particularly because of the mercy of the Pancha Tattva, everybody is a good candidate for pure love of God. Not only everybody is a candidate for pure love of God, But everybody is a candidate to become a guru. Okay, controversial. Lord Chaitanya said, that everyone has as their duty to learn the science of Krishna consciousness, like our spiritual master or founder Acharya of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, Srila Prabhupada stated that everyone, of course at that time everyone meant boys and girls. Now we have a lot of seniors, right? Right, Madhava? He's senior. I'm senior. One senior. So we have a lot of seniors, we have a lot of children, and so we have a large variety. But at that time in the movement, everyone was a boy or a girl. And Srila Prabhupada stated that he wanted everyone to get sufficient education, and of course he mentioned something called the Bhaktivedanta degree. That meant sufficient education, and Prabhupada was hoping that by the time he would leave the planet, all of his disciples would be gurus, boys and girls. So Prabhupada was open like that. And that's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu couldn't reach one group of persons. There was one group that Panchatattva couldn't overflood with love of God. Can anyone guess what that group was? It's not a national group. It's not a gender. It's not an old person, young person. It's something called Mayavadis. For those of you who don't know what Mayavadis are, those are persons who basically think that God is illusion, or they can become God, or everything is one, and ultimately God has no personality or individuality. That's what a Mayavadi is. In other words, someone who is blaspheming the Supreme Personality of God. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he wanted to even liberate these people. That's a symptom not only of the Lord, but of these great devotees. According to the description by Lord Kapila, another incarnation of Krishna, Titikshava Kurunika Surada Sarvadehinam Jata Shachava Shanta Sadhava Sadhabhushana, that a devotee, and also the Lord, is Adalta Shatrava, has no enemies. So Krishna is making plans how to save people who are trying to avoid him. And there's this verse which I am going to read right now from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and comment on it, and give some examples of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's thinking of how he could save everybody. This is how merciful Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. Even those who hated him, he's God. And they have dedicated their whole lives to hating and trying to be God. Even those people, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to inundate with love of God. So you can look up this verse later on. It's in the 7th chapter of Adi Lila, text, two texts, 31 and 32. Very important verse. I've given several classes on this verse. I never tire of speaking about this verse. So let me just read the Bengali very quickly. Taha deki Mahaprabhu karena chintana jagat duvaite ame kaminun ayatana kaya edaya pratigya ila bonga tha sabha duvaite prativa Pichu Ranga. So, I'll just give you a translation. Seeing that the Mayavadis and others were fleeing, Lord Chaitanya thought, I wanted everyone to be immersed in the inundation of love Godhead, but some of them escaped. Therefore, I shall devise a trick to drown them also. Of course, we know in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes that his trick was taking sannyas. Because in the culture in India, if someone is dressed in saffron or as a sannyasi, guess what? They get a lot of respect, even if they are rascals. Yes, sometimes I give that example. If I go to someone's house and I just dress in Western clothes, okay, hello, who are you? But if I dress as a sannyasi and come to, at least I have to be from India, not from America. But anyway, I dress as a sannyasi and come to someone's house. Oh, come in. Take some prasadam. Let me bathe your feet. I could be the greatest rascal imaginable. But that's the culture. So in the same way, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not a rascal. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood the culture. So he decided to take sannyas. Now, there's also an esoteric reason for him taking sannyas, which we're going to talk about in a few days. But the exoteric reason was to save everybody. And so, Srila Prabhupada makes a very important point about this first, because it also applies to us. So many times, we may become immersed, not particularly in Mayavad philosophy. Some of you may be. Ishwaraham Maham Bhogi, Siddhaham Balavam Sukhi, I'm perfect, powerful, happy, and the center. That's a type of Mayavad philosophy. I gotta take care of number one. You think you're number one? You're not even number 1,000,000. Like Prabhupada would say to someone, when someone even said that I am the most fallen, Prabhupada said, you're not the most anything. Because we all want to be prominent, famous, right? And if we can't be famous by doing something great, we can become famous by doing something horrible. But at least we want to be well known, proper adoration and distinction. So this is important. So anyway, so Prabhupada makes a very interesting point here in his purport that applies to us. Because we also have to invent ways to bring Krishna consciousness to others and try to, let's say, overcome tendencies we may have, whether those tendencies are sectarian, national tendencies, I love America, or I don't know the Indian national anthem, so I'm not going to sing it. But I remember I spent some time in Fiji, and they had this national anthem. Fiji, I love you, Fiji, my Fiji. Real simple. At least in America, the beautiful amber waves of grain, His Majesty above, through the flag, all that stuff. So, anyway, we have these particular types of discrimination. We all discriminate. I'm not talking about racially. Whether it's gender discrimination, national discrimination, and my family discrimination, right? All these are different types of discrimination. And In the culture that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born in or appeared in, there was a discrimination based upon rituals. Rituals. You know, people have so many different rituals that they learn. Some rituals may have some value insofar as connecting one to the absolute truth or connecting one to one's goal in life. But generally, these rituals tend to mount up after a while. Generation after generation after generation. You get so many rituals. Finally, you forget what the essence of life is. And so, therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to confront, in addition to the Mayavadis, and the Mayavadis also were subject to this, he had to confront something called smartas. Smartas doesn't mean people who are smart. Would be nice. It means people who remember rituals but forget the essence. It's like there's an injunction. One should always remember Krishna and never forget him. So the smartest, one should always forget Krishna and never remember him. So it's very interesting. Of course, Bhakti Vinod, I'm not going to get into this whole analysis, but one great acharya, actually several great acharyas, analyzed different deviations from the conclusion or from Krishna consciousness or Vaishnavism. They're called Apasampradayas. Sampradaya means disciplic succession. And I'm not going to go through all of those. There's 15, 20 of them. But one of them is Smarta conception, where one just becomes really attached to all these rules and regulations. And so much so that one criticizes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's attempt to spread Krishna consciousness, which they did when he was a grahasta. Oh, he's just a grahasta. And so much so that they criticized Srila Prabhupada's attempt to spread Krishna consciousness, not understanding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire, which is that everyone become flooded in the ocean of love of God. Everyone. Not understanding even the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Because people get so attached to rituals. And Srila Prabhupada, he understood the essence of all the Vedic injunctions. I mean, Krishna himself says that in the 15th chapter, next 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, right? By all the Vedas, by all the Vedas I'm to be known. Right? One who knows Krishna knows everything. So let me read part of this purport. It's a very inspiring purport. Here's an important point. Of course, Prabhupada's not commenting on me, he's commenting on the verse here. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to invent a way to capture the Mayavadis and others who did not take interest in Krishna consciousness movement. This is the symptom of an acharya. An acharya who comes for the service of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada's experience, cannot be expected to conform to a stereotype. For he must find the ways and means by which Krishna consciousness may be spread. Sometimes jealous persons criticize the Krishna conscious movement because it engages equally both boys and girls in distributing the love of God. Let me give a little historical perspective. Prabhupada is commenting on this because he received criticism when he first came to America because he was engaging boys and girls. There weren't any men and women, just boys and girls. And I was one of those boys at that time. And the reason he got criticized was because of all these rituals that have been built up throughout the ages in India. And primarily, a lot of those rituals came because of India's being a captive nation for practically 1,500 to maybe even close to 1,800 years. Because it influenced by other cultures, which I'm not going to name right now. The other cultures influenced them, so they adopted many of their different misunderstandings. Because the original Vedic culture didn't really consider, let's say, or have discrimination between, let's say, men and women, or boys and girls in this case. Because the original Vedic culture considered that one knew the science of Krishna, one was qualified to be guru, to be devotee. So Prabhupada got criticized. And so Prabhupada says here, jealous people. Prabhupada's even heavier after that. Not knowing the boys and girls in countries like America and in Europe and America, Vicksburg to these fools and rascals. So now Prabhupada goes through the R word. Rascals. Criticize the boys and girls in Christian consciousness, referring to mingling. But these rascals, there's another rascal. You have to understand, rascals are really heavy in India. Really heavy. I didn't know that until I called someone a rascal. And it's fortunate that I'm here today. Because I did chant the prayers of Lord Shinray very, very seriously. At that time, Shinray came out of the train doors and everything. However, since both boys and girls have been trained to become preachers, these girls are not ordinary girls, but as good as their brothers, they are preaching Krishna consciousness. Therefore, to engage both boys and girls in fully transcendental activities is a policy intended to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. These jealous fools who criticize the intermingling of boys and girls will simply have to be satisfied with their own foolishness. Pretty heavy, isn't it? Because they cannot think of how to spread Krishna consciousness by adopting ways and means that are favorable for the purpose. Their stereotype methods will never help spread Krishna consciousness. Therefore, what we are doing is perfect by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. For it is he who proposed to invent a way to capture those who strayed from Krishna consciousness. So what is Krishna consciousness? Of course, being conscious of Krishna. But it means being in love of Krishna, with Krishna. And the way that one becomes in love with Krishna is by following the process of bhakti. And that's open for everyone. And that's Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, to flood the world with love of God. That's his mission, in a nutshell. So we're all of you, me too, are welcome to be part of that mission to serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is my message today. And to end, I'd like to read a little poem that I wrote about, I think I have it here, with the help of my AI. But I wrote it. Actually, Prabhupada wrote it, and I paraphrase Prabhupada's words. And this is, I call this the Ballad of the Golden Avatar. Right. And it summarizes pretty much what I said last year, and then we'll end. When Mayavadis left the tide and slipped love's rising sea, I'm going to be recording them still. The golden Lord within his heart spoke soft in secrecy. I long to drown the world in grace, in Prema's shining flame, yet some have run beyond the flood. I'll draw them back again. Pretty good. He walked beneath compassion's sun, with moonlight in his eyes, no soul, no too lost, no mind too proud, no mask of cold disguise. I'll weave a net of mercy's art, a stratagem divine, for every heart must taste the wave, this nectareous design. And here's a comment by Abba Shapro. And Acharya does not walk in patterns carved by men. He charts you past through stubborn fields to call the lost again, not bound by form nor frozen rule, nor by the critic's cry. He bends the world towards Krishna's name, beneath love's boundless sky. Beautiful, isn't it? This is what Chaitanya's mission. Some scoffed to see both sons and daughters preach with equal flame. They whispered blame with narrow minds against the holy name. But girls who sing and boys who chant are souls in bright array. No less than saints in training bold to show the shining way. Not flesh nor fleeting social fame, but spirit dressed in youth, they rise as servants of the Lord, as heralds of the truth, to join their hands in sacred work, in his wisdom's living art, for prema knows no lesser worth in any seeking heart. Let jealous tongues be satisfied with walls they build in fear. Their rigid lines and borrowed forms will ne'er draw souls near. For love requires courageous means, fresh rivers yet untrod, as Chaitanya vowed to capture all and flood the world with God. This movement is no sectarian spark, no cloistered fading fire. It burns to wake society with spirit's deep desire, to reawaken sleeping hearts, to lift the age's gloom, and plant within the dust of earth the soul's eternal bloom. Yet many wait at mercy's gate, longing for the sacred sign, for touch of grace, initiation's thread, connection to the divine. Oh, let no small misunderstanding restrain that holy stream, for Chaitanya's flood was meant to rise beyond a guarded dream. Just one more. So sing the golden Lord's intent. Let cymbals clash and ring. He came to drown the fleeing ones and make the nations sing. No soul escaped his loving plot, no heart beyond his art, for he devised 1,000 ways to claim the human heart. And you can see it's based on this verse. What was actually based on this verse by Srila? Verse and first one by this non-Vishnu. And that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. Just to flood the whole world. And whatever, I mean, obviously, not to break the principles of Krishna consciousness, but to adjust some details. Just like I play the guitar, little detail. Just a detail. What instruments someone plays. I mean, Narada Muni plays, well, a type of guitar. Where's the question? People use the word Vedic, non-Vedic, but nobody really understands what that means. But I can tell you what Vedic means. It means to know Krishna and to please Krishna. That's Vedic. Isn't it? That's what Vedic is. To chant Krishna's name in Kali Yuga with great love and devotion, to take prasadam, to distribute prasadam, to distribute the holy names. Was it Vishnu? To distribute Prabhupada's books. Distribute Prabhupada's books to everyone. Just like we have some of our young folks, children going out and distributing Prabhupada's books. Children's Sankirtan. Isn't it?
Yes.
Because I was just seeing a presentation by Shaishika, and he was showing how the youth distribution of Prabhupada's books. I mean, that's our business. immerse people in Krishna's pastimes. Of course, follow the four regular principles. Of course, chant the holy names. But don't get so enwrapped in little cultural items. And that's what works your time. Or use cultural items to trick people to take over, like I'm doing. I'm dressing as a sannyasi. It's not that I put on a sannyas dress and I became a better devotee just by putting on a sannyas dress. It doesn't make a difference as far as my own Krishna consciousness is concerned. In fact, this sannyas dress that I'm wearing is not traditional sannyas dress. This sannyas dress was taken up by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to trick people to become Krishna conscious. It's a trick that you all listen to me. If I came up here with a white dhoti, nobody would listen. So I'm tricking you all. And that's a trick. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, of course, traditionally sannyasis and Gaudiya Vaishnava sannyasis would wear lungies, white lungies. Like the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan didn't walk around with dandas. They had Gopina Kanakashvato, very little, maybe a little wrap on top or something. So, we have to pull out all stops to bring people to Krishna consciousness. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. Okay? Men, women, boys, girls, old men, old women. Anybody else? What? Oh, middle-aged, sorry. Middle-aged men, middle-aged women. Everybody. Like even Prabhupada had little Saraswati, that was Malati's daughter, preaching Krishna consciousness. Even a little girl preaching Krishna consciousness. So everybody can teach. And if someone knows the science of Krishna sufficiently, they can be one group. That's the whole point, is to know how to present, to know the philosophy, to know the practical application, according to those Goswamis of Vrindavan. Okay. So I think it's time to end because I've spoken too long. So thank you very much. All glories to His divine grace. Shila Prabhupada, Shila Prabhupada ki jai.